everyone. My name is Yoriko Otomo, and I'm director of the Global Research Network, which is a diverse group of academics working on social justice issues. And I'm also volunteering at the Kent Refugee Action Network, and I'm here to share some tips on how to give a public talk. So, as I said, I'm going to speak for a few minutes and then give you a chance to practice some of the techniques. So, why is public speaking important? When I was a child, when I was a teenager as well, I used to be really, really shy, and I hated the idea of speaking in public. And whenever I was in front of the class, I'd get really anxious. I'd start to shake and my throat would seize up. You know, some of you may have felt that before. There'd be a horrible feeling in my stomach and I'd sweat and I'd forget what I was going to say. And it was terrible. It was a real struggle. So when I got to high school, there was an opportunity to join a debating club. And that's public speaking, you know, sort of arguing with two sides, arguing about the same issue. So taking one position and another side taking the other position. So I decided that although I really, really didn't want to do it, it was a good opportunity to overcome my fear. And so I joined the club, and they made us practice over and over again. So basic skills like preparing notes and standing properly, learning how to make eye contact, and talking at the right pace. So not too fast, not too slowly. And eventually I learned not to be really terrified about it. And I never enjoyed it. But when I went to university, those sort of techniques really helped me to overcome my fear and to be able to at least give class presentations and pass my university courses and to make some friends. And then when I became an academic after university, those skills really helped again. So, you know, as an academic, you have to give lots of presentations and teach in front of a class. And one day I suddenly realized that I was standing in front of hundreds of students every week teaching, and it was fine. It was absolutely fine. You know, I didn't really enjoy it because I'm not an extrovert, but I didn't mind it at all. It was completely fine. So I'm still a shy person, yeah, but knowing some really simple techniques and having practice has helped me to be able to communicate and to get the message across effectively and to achieve the outcomes that I want to achieve. And it's also really good feeling to know that I have the skills to stand up in public anywhere, even if I don't have much time to prepare, and even in front of, say, quite intimidating people. It can be, you know, a group of CEOs or a really big group of students I've never met, and I can just talk, yeah, without becoming completely frozen. So I know that you guys are here today because you want to gain the skills to represent yourself and then to represent other people as well, and to build relationships. And so you've made a really good start. The main thing that I want you to take away from today is to remember that you need to, number one, work out what you want from the talk. Yeah. Number two, work out what you want your audience to learn. Yeah. What do you want to communicate to the audience? And number three, work out what your truth is, what the message is. Yeah. So because we don't have that much time today, I'm just going to let you know that you can learn a lot from watching TED Talks. That's spelled TED, TED Talks. You can find them online. They're on YouTube. And that's really good practice because they're good examples of people who've had some practice. Some of them are excellent public speakers, and some of them are talking about public speaking and good public speaking techniques. So just by observing them, also by observing good speakers on television and at events that you might go to, you know, particularly after the lockdown has eased, you'll be able to pick up some techniques by watching what they're doing. So what are the different types of public speaking? There's debating, which I've mentioned. It's more like arguing. There's performance, perhaps reading out something you've written, like a poem. Yeah. There's teaching, where you want to make sure that the people you're talking to have understood a very specific thing that you're trying to communicate. And then there are public talks, which are sort of stories that you're sharing to inspire people or to change their minds. And the last is probably what you guys will be doing most in the work that you're trying to carry out. Okay, so there are different types of talks. There are also different kinds of audiences. Depending on where your audience is from and what their shared experience is, what they'll be looking for in listening to your talk, your message may need to be adjusted. Okay? So are they from a Western culture or not? Are they young or old? Are they rich? Are they poor? Is English their first language? Are they all in the same kind of industry? Are they all doing the same kind of work? Is it a small audience or is it a large one? So if it's a small audience, you're speaking to in person, for instance, like physically present, you will want to sit or stand closer to them, okay? You might be speaking without a microphone. If it's up to 15, 20, even 30 people, you might, if you have good projection, if you have a loud voice that carries, you can probably speak without a microphone, okay? And you'll probably end up having more of a conversation with them if it's a smaller group. If it's a large audience, you're going to need to change your body language to be more inclusive. You'll be standing further back. You want to make sure you've got good lighting on you so people can see you. You'll want to make sure that there's a microphone, that you know how to use it, that it's working properly, and that the volume is correct. And you'll probably end up spending more of your time speaking to your audience and then taking a few questions afterwards. Okay. So you have to think about your audience and the space that it's in. And so what happens is when you become used to doing talks, the preparation is most important and the technical stuff is the most important. So, as I said, what sort of space is it in? Is there lighting? It's worth visiting the room you'll be talking in, if possible, or at least looking at a picture of it. What's the building like? Particularly if you tend to get nervous, it's a really good idea to get a sense for what the space is like. Is it a big room? Is it a small room? Will it be really full or not? Will you need to check that, as I said, there's proper light for your notes, if you have notes? If there's a microphone, who do you need to get in touch with? If you're using a computer to show the audience like some images, then do you have the right cables? Is there someone who's going to help you? All these technical questions, it's a good idea to think about beforehand. If you're handing out some paper, for example, is there someone who can print it for you? Don't do this stuff last minute, okay? You might want to rearrange the seats to put them in a better position. So if there's going to be a small group of people, you might want to put the seats, take the tables away and put the chairs in a circle, for example. Okay. Think about where you're going to be standing, where you might walk around. Are you going to be on a stage? Are you just going to be sitting in a room with people? Yeah. So the more that you know, the more you can visualize, the more you can imagine how the talk is going to go. And the more relaxed you'll be. Again, if you tend to be a shyer person or tend to get nervous, then that sort of preparation is really helpful. Okay, then the next thing to do is work out what the key point of your talk is. As I said, work out what it is you want to get across, the message you want to get across. And then write it down in a couple of sentences so that that's at the front of your mind as you prepare your talk. When you are writing your talk, you need to find hooks for your listeners. So you know yourself what it is you want to communicate. You also need to take the position of the audience and think about what it is that's going to get them interested in what you have to say. What are the hooks? We call them hooks. So what's going to hook them, like a fish, hook them into listening, actually listening and paying attention to what you're saying. Why is your talk important? You know why it's important for you, but try and, thinking about who your audience is, try and think about why it's important for them and what they're going to get out of listening to your talk. So, for example, if you're saying, we need more funding, that's fine. You need more funding, but why do the listeners why does your audience need to understand that that's really important, and what will they get out of it? Yeah, is it that they'll feel better? Is it that it's the right thing to do? Is it that there's a need, and if they don't give you funding, there'll be a problem further down the line? Yeah, so it's really important to work out what their motivation is for listening to you. The single most important trick for speaking in public is to tell a story. Yeah. So this is, you don't need to make anything up, but to tell things in the form of a story, and to tell a narrative, and to create an image that people are going to be able to understand, to make sense of. Our brains are hardwired to pay attention to stories, and to remember them. So they can inspire and inform and move your audience in a way that nothing else really will. And journalists are really good at this. So if you want to learn how to tell stories, you can listen to the radio or read the newspaper and look at how a journalist will take a problem or take an issue, for example, climate change, and can communicate the problem in the shape of a story. So you might start with a personal story about your relation to the topic. Why are you talking about it? Yeah, what's your interest in it? Or share a story about someone else. You might talk about your motivation and your journey, the obstacles that have been faced, how they've been overcome, and what you've discovered. So the reason why storytelling is so effective is that it allows you to speak naturally, and it allows you to communicate emotion, which people are really listening for. And it embeds your story into their long-term memory. So even after the talk, they will remember you. They will remember, even if they don't remember everything that you said, they'll remember the story. So if you think back to the public speakers you've listened to, or your teachers that you really liked, and you try to remember a particular incident, you're going to remember a story that they've told. Yeah. The next thing to do is to make sure that you know how long your talk will be. So normally when you give a talk, someone else is going to be organizing it, and they'll say to you, can you come and speak? And the first thing you need to ask is how long, well, after you find out who's listening and why you're going to talk, you need to find out how long your talk will be. This is really important because usually organizers have a schedule in mind. They've got this speaker and then this speaker and lunchtime and so on. And nobody likes speakers who talk for ages and ages and ages without following their time slot. So it's a good idea to know how long your talk will be and to prepare your talk in advance so that you'll remain within that slot. And I'll teach you some tricks in a moment about how to do that. So in terms of timing, it's also a good idea to arrive at your talk at least 10 minutes beforehand. It's polite. You also want to make sure everything's working okay, you know where you're standing or sitting, you can see your audience. And you want to work out as well how much of the percentage of the time you're given you'll be spending talking and how much you want to spend communicating with your audience. Yeah, just having a discussion or having questions and answers. So, for example, when Fauzia said today, do you want to come and give the talk? I said, how long will I have? And she said, 1 hour. I think she said 1 hour. I can't remember. Maybe I said I'll speak for 1 hour. And then I had to decide how much of the time will I spend talking and how much of the time will I spend chatting with you guys. Yeah. And that really depends, again, on the audience. As I said, if it's a smaller group, everyone will enjoy talking more. It's better if people can engage more by having their chance to talk. So it's better if you can minimize the length of time you're spending talking. Yeah. All right. So this is important. The best speed for a public talk is 120 words a minute. The best speed for a public talk is 120 words a minute. For an audience that's not native English speakers, it might be a bit slower. If you're someone who talks really, really fast, or you're getting super excited about something, it might be a little bit faster. But that's a good 120 words a minute is a good thing to aim for if you want to practice speaking at a rate that will make most people understand you clearly. So you can time yourself and practice that, and just see the rate at which you're talking. You should aim to make at most 1 point per minute and 1 minute per paragraph. So if you want to write out your talk, you can work out the length of your talk by taking the number of minutes you have and multiplying them by 120. This is if you tend to get nervous and you really want to write out every word. Yeah. So you can multiply it by 120. So, for example, if I decided I'm going to speak for 20 minutes today, I know that I can write there's 120 words a minute, and I'm talking at that rate, and so I need to write about 2,400 words. That will be a 20-minute talk, and so I can guarantee that I'll stay within that slot. It really depends on your speaking style as to whether that's going to work for you. But if you tend to get nervous, I think that's a good thing to hold on to. If you're going to speak for 10 minutes, it's going to be 1,200 words, because often people start and they have no idea, how to prepare. You'll want to have a structure for your talk. So you want an introduction and a conclusion, and then you've got your story in the middle, your message in the middle. In the introduction, it's a good idea to set out what you're going to say and what you really want people to pay attention to, because people zone out quite quickly. Yeah, particularly if you're talking for like half an hour, 40 minutes, even if you're talking for longer, like an hour, people are going to be really paying attention to the first bit, and then when they realize you're about to finish, they'll be paying attention again to make sure they haven't missed anything. So the introduction and conclusion is really important. Yeah, you want to repeat the main things that you want people to take away. And the middle part is going to be the body of your talk, yeah, which is the story. Okay, body language. So what is body language? Body language is all the communication that happens that's non-verbal. Yep. So this is your appearance, your position, where you are in the room, or where you are in relation to your audience. It's your posture. Are you standing up straight, or are you like slouching? Are you doing this? Are you walking? How much are you moving? Some people move a lot when they're talking. Some people don't move at all and they're sort of frozen where they are. Eyes. Are you making eye contact? Okay. Smiling. Some people smile a lot. Some people completely forget to smile. Hands. What are you doing with your hands? And your tone of voice. So is it a really, really high-pitched tone, or is it low and slow? Your tone of voice, is it going up and down, and is it modulated? Or some people talk at the same tone of voice the whole time, and it's really, really hard to pay attention because it becomes quite boring. Yeah. So you need to pay attention to all of these things, because so much of communication happens non-verbally. So much of communication is actually looking at body language. So there are psychologists in Princeton who found that it takes 1/10 of a second to form a first impression. That's a microsecond for someone to decide if they like you, if you're worth being listened to, if they're going to pay attention to you. They're going to decide if you're a confident person, if you're convincing, if they want to hire you, if they want to give you something, if they want to give you their time. Okay, so it takes 1/10 of a second for people to form a first impression and to make these initial background decisions. 7% of what's communicated is via what's said. So it's important to write down, to prepare and think about your message. But actually, that's the 7% of the communication that's happening. 38%, so I'm just quoting some studies, 38% is tone of voice. The tone of voice. Is it kind? Is it warm? Is it authoritative? Is it panicky and shrill? It's a tone of voice. The rest of the body of the communication, 55%, happens via other body language. As I said, your posture. Are you standing up straight? Are you confident? Is your body open? Are you actually looking at your audience? Are you connecting? And so on. And so it's important to take care of your physical appearance. Yeah, that's not to say you need to dress up in a really fancy way when you give a talk, or be different, be someone who you're not. But it's important to be neat and well presented. It means your audience is more likely to pay attention to what you say. It makes sense to think about your eye contact, as I was saying, and the hand gestures, and to practice a little bit beforehand. If you've got these skills, which are all learnable, none of it's natural. I mean, it's all natural in the sense that when we talk to people, we like and we're comfortable with, we do them naturally. But to do it in a public space with a lot of people, that's not so natural. But they're all skills that can be learned. Yeah, and they become really, really powerful ways of communicating. So you can get a head start. If you're about to give an important talk, there is this thing called a power pose that the Harvard academic Amy Cuddy has found. And she found that adopting these poses increases your testosterone, yeah, which is a hormone that's really important when you're performing, when you're doing something facing other people. And there's a decrease in cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And it leads us to feel more powerful and more relaxed, and it leads to a better performance overall. So here are some power poses. They're very basic. One of them is standing in a wide stance with your legs apart and your arms by your sides, relaxed. Another one is to have your arms raised in a V shape above your head. Another is to stand with your legs apart, quite wide, with your hands on your hips and your shoulders back. Or you might have your arms crossed behind your head, like this. And you can lie back in your seat if it's safe. It's not safe for me right now, so I'm not going to do that. So arms behind your head and sitting or standing. Yeah. But it's about forcing your body to take on the position that you would if you were feeling powerful, if you're feeling confident, if you're feeling relaxed. And by being in that position, by being in a physical position like that, it tricks your mind into thinking, I am confident, I am relaxed, I've got this, yeah. And while you're in that position, take a big yawn, Open your jaw. That helps to loosen your jaw. It helps to loosen your diaphragm, so you're breathing properly. All of these things seem incidental. They seem not important compared to the actual talk, but they're vital in making sure that you communicate well with the audience. So relax your diaphragm, breathe in, breathe out, take in air, relax your speaking muscles. Some people even do voice exercises before they give a public talk. Before I used to teach, if there was a big audience, if there were 300 students, for example, I'd do a little voice exercise to warm up, to make sure that I can speak for 2 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, without getting a really sore throat. Okay, so those are some really easy techniques. And although you don't want to do this, obviously, while you're actually talking, it's really important to make sure you're not doing this, yeah, or crossing your legs, doing all these things that make you look, or doing this, or this. Some people are so nervous, and I was one of those people that they tend to try and make themselves as small as possible when they're talking, and so their voice becomes quieter. Yeah, your shoulders are hunched. You might cross your legs, crossing your arms. And in extreme situations, when you see people really anxious about talking, you'll see everything is crossed. They're sort of protecting their whole body from being attacked, and their heads are down. It's really hard to hear them, and it's absolutely not convincing. Yeah. So what you're doing when you're taking on the correct body language, when you're adopting good body language, is making your audience comfortable. You're making them secure in the knowledge that, well, you're not worried about being attacked. You're not going to attack them at a very fundamental level. You're happy to be there. You're willing to talk to them, and you want to reach out to them. So these are the sorts of messages that you're conveying. Hand gestures. Hand gestures make people listen to you. So there are lots of videos that you can watch that will teach you very specific hand gestures that are helpful. And I might teach you some while we do our individual practice. But there are some, be careful, because there are some hand gestures, obviously, for some cultural contexts that are really rude, that we might do normally in our own cultures. So it's worth just looking up and studying specific hand gestures. Some very simple ones are simple tips are to keep your hands open. Yeah. This sort of hand gesture is power. It's a power gesture. If someone keeps interrupting while you're talking, you can do this, This is a very, very effective, very powerful. It's a little bit rude. It can come across as rude or abrupt, but that's another thing that you can do to stop someone without having to say, please shut up now. You can just use your hand. Yeah. If you want to be welcoming and inclusive, you can put your hands out. The general rule is you want to make your hand gestures within this sort of space, within the space of your body, your torso. If you start doing a lot of this stuff, it looks erratic. People can go, oh, they're a little bit crazy. They're out of control. So you don't want to do too much of these sorts of hand gestures. Keep them within this box, but make sure you use them deliberately. Yeah. So when you're making points, you can say, I'm going to make 3 points today. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And you might want to communicate, this is important to me, by putting your hand on your chest. You might want to say, please listen to me, please believe me, by using this sort of gesture. Yeah. So normally you'd make gestures within this space. The exception is if you have a really large audience and you want to include them, you need to make your gestures bigger to capture the whole audience. So if there are, say, more than 50 people, you'll want to start doing bigger gestures. Welcome everyone. Over here we've got some people, and over there we've got some people. So you want to make them a bit bigger to take in the whole room. And likewise, if there's a much bigger room that you have to give your talk in, you might want to walk up and down the stage a bit more. You don't want to stand on one corner of the stage and talk to this group of people, because then you're ignoring all of those other people are feeling ignored. So you want to move across the space and make sure you address the different parts, people sitting in different parts of the room. Smile, look around the audience, make eye contact, keeping in mind that in Anglo-Saxon cultures, in Western cultures, avoiding eye contact indicates that someone's not being truthful, or it shows that they're not certain about something. Yeah. In Latino and Asian cultures, however, most of them, prolonging eye contact, like direct eye contact, and for a long time, indicates hostility or aggression or even sexual interest. Yeah. So you're going to have to think really carefully about your audience. If you're not sure, or in fact, if you tend to get nervous, like me, I used to, I recommend scanning the room just above people's heads. So if you've got an audience, you're looking here. So you're looking around the room like this, and make sure you turn your head so people can see that you're looking around the audience, but you don't have to look into people's eyes. If you do that, interestingly, it gives people the impression that you are looking at everyone in the room and that you're confident and you're engaging. Yep. And people will feel included. Make sure that you're not too far away from your audience. Yeah. So another tendency, if you tend to get nervous, is that you would stand behind a podium or stand as far as possible from your audience. Yeah, and talk to them from a distance. Try and bridge that gap by stepping in as close as you can, reasonably. It's worth noting, again, that if you're not from a Western culture, in Europe, people tend to use their faces more. They use a wider range of expressions and more exaggerated expressions. You know, they use their face more, as well as more gestures. If you're not from an Eastern culture, it's worth noting that in Asia, using exaggerated facial expressions, yeah, and big hand gestures can be perceived, as I said earlier, as being a bit aggressive or erratic, out of control. Yeah. So, because I'm from Japan, I tend to forget. I really tend to forget to use my face and to use my hands. And I need to consciously do it all the time when I'm teaching. A study by other academics have found that we tend to ascribe leadership to people with voices that have a lower pitch, men and women. So more than simply having a low voice, we know that hearing speakers with a resonant voice is a voice that's easy to listen to, that's calm and dynamic, that moves up and down, and in a slow tempo is good, right? So if you aren't blessed with that kind of voice to begin with, you can still learn it. You can have a speaking voice. And it's worth listening to good speakers on the radio or to imitate their tone and their pitch. Yeah, doesn't mean you have to imitate their accent or anything, but to learn how to modulate your voice, think consciously. And there are lots and lots of things on the internet that can help you to do that, how to use your breathing well, yeah, and how to project your voice so that people find it easier to listen to. People have found that women in particular who are in power, positions of power, tend to take on a lower pitch. Yeah. When men have low voices, people tend to lean in to listen to them. They pay attention more. So that's worth thinking about. And it's not just and the pitch of the voice doesn't just indicate what kind of person they are. It indicates basically that you're relaxed. Because when you're not relaxed, when you're nervous and you're anxious, your throat tightens up. Voice becomes quite squeaky like this. But when you're relaxed and you're in control, the voice naturally drops, yeah? So that's also why it's helpful to do breathing exercises beforehand and then to make sure that you're physically relaxed, yeah? Okay, so you're standing tall, got your body open, you're relaxed, you're starting your talk in a resonant voice. The most natural way to stand, this is the thing I get asked a lot about. What do you do with your hands? What do you do with your hands when you're talking? Do you hold your paper like this? No. Well, shall I put one arm up like this? One arm here like this? Shall I put my hands on the table and lean forward? Some men do that. You see that a fair bit. The most natural way to stand, although it doesn't feel natural, is to have your hands by your sides. It's really easy. Just leave them there by your sides. It doesn't feel right, but it looks fine. Yeah, and it's the least stressful way to stand. If you're going to have paper or your phone, I ideally recommend not using your phone to have your notes on. But if you've got something that you're reading some notes from to remind yourself what you're going to say, I recommend printing it out in more than size 14 font. It's got to be big enough for you to read, because normally when you write an essay for school or something, you can write it in 0.12 font, which you can see, because you're reading that here. But you have to remember when you're talking, when you're speaking, you're not holding a paper here. You've got to be able to hold it down here, have it down here, and to look at occasionally. So point 14, point 16, mine's usually in 16 because my eyesight's going. It's not great. It'll get bigger as you get older. Make sure your font is big enough to see. Yeah. Or if you're writing it by hand, make sure when you write it, just check it that you can stand and see it from where you're standing. Okay. The last thing you want to do is to go and see a public speaker who goes, hang on, and then they just look at their paper like this because they can't read their handwriting and it's too small to see. All right. Obviously, it's better if you can leave your notes behind completely. Yeah, it's better if you can make eye contact with your audience and talk naturally. Okay. So body language, just to wrap up about body language, it is really important because using things like effective hand gestures, actually make people pay attention to what you're saying. So it's not that what you're saying makes people pay attention to how you look. It's how you look that makes people pay attention to what you're saying. Yeah, that's really important. We tend to get really worried and think, oh, if I say this, or if I speak too loud, or if I draw too much attention to myself, people will judge what I'm saying. That's not true. People are already looking at you. And so you need to make them feel comfortable enough with what you're doing as you're getting their attention to be able to hear what you're saying, because what you're saying at the end of the day is what the important thing is, right? So after all of that, after all of that preparation, it's really important to practice your talk. Okay. So you'll need to do this less as you become more experienced, because you won't have to pay attention so much to your posture and your hand gestures and your tone of voice. This will all start to come more naturally. But as you are starting out, it's really important to practice. Give your talk in front of the mirror, give your talk in front of a friend and get feedback. Record yourself, and watch it back. It's really hard. It's like, even today, I hate listening to myself being recorded on audio or on the video. And I think, do I really look like that? Or do I really sound like that? But that's fine. It's not about looking good. It's about communicating effectively. Yeah, that's the key thing. So what you're looking at is, oh no, my hair looks terrible. You say you have to look at your recording or the mirror thinking, am I using good hand gestures? Is my body language relaxed? Yeah. Is my voice easy to understand? Yeah. To summarize the key message, again, this is important to do. You say what you want to say at the beginning, what you're going to say in your introduction, and when you stop a public talk, you say what you have said, you summarize what you've said, and you want to leave people with the key message. So to summarize the key message from this talk, decide what you want, first of all. Yeah, what do you want to get from your talk? Number 2, decide what you want your audience to learn, what you want them to take away, what you want them to remember, and tell the truth. Yeah, tell the truth. What's the truth of your story? What's the truth of your message?